You're live.
We will call the finance meeting to order at 7:02. Taylor, we'll go ahead and start off with you.
Okay. Good evening, Finance Committee. I have a list of things I can get us through, if that sounds good.
Okay.
Actually, well, first I'll start with the easy one. So we just need to have either, well, an ordinance accepting donations for the pool pump and chili cook-off monies for the rec fund officially. I don't believe we ever put that in writing, and then we should thank those folks and anyone who donated in that ordinance. So that should be an easy one.
Yep, that's fine. I'm all right with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And then I was just looking up. What do you remember how much that invoice was, Scott, for the from ODOT?
You can pull it up.
Okay.
It's at
If you
$7
do
grand, I believe. I'm gonna pull it up right now.
Here. Oh, here I got it. I'm sorry.
How are we getting something so late from the,
Square, yeah. How
Yeah, from the
does
square.
that happen?
I have no idea. Came in the mail. We just opened it, and
And I called them and I gave them the, how are you just now billing us? And I got the, well, you know, we're the state and COVID and.
is that your retainage or something?
Say again?
Is that part of the retainage, maybe?
I'm not even sure what you're talking about, retainage.
Well, so when you pay out,
You mean
well,
like-
no, retainage, so anytime you pay a contractor or subcontractor, you always hold retainage for punch list items and then at the end of the project, their last bill is their retainage was left.
That guy couldn't answer any questions. Alan Craig is who I talked to. He's the one that sent us the bill, and he had to go look it up to see even what it was, because it was
Yeah.
before my time as well. 2018, I think, is when you guys
Yeah.
did that.
Should we
So-
pay something we don't really, they can't answer what it's for?
I think we should look into that.
Yeah.
Well,
I do
so the bill's detailed, meaning it talks, let me pull it up so I can speak specifically about it, because the original one wasn't detailed and the second one was.
it does explain like that our full cost was like going to be 90 or something like. I hate to see.
I mean, ODOT already,
Here we go.
they screwed up on the original cost and then we fell short and had to cut that project short because of that.
So this bill's for $8,651.44. It is broken out as construction inspection cost less deposit. So the construction contract cost originally was $73,000 to $73,262,000, and then the deposit was $62,448.
That's just the local share, right?
Mm-hmm.
The whole contract's 1.46 million.
Our match money was 150.
So, and they give detailed, you know, as far as service box connection. I mean, it's 3 pages of line items of what's included in that fee.
And why that wasn't paid before now, though? I mean, or billed before now?
So when I contacted Mr. Crick, because I had no idea what it was at all, he didn't have a better answer other than the state sometimes takes a while.
Not that long. I guess find out what the overall contract was and how much we actually paid. And those two should match up.
Yeah, I mean, I can verify against our books for sure. I didn't do that today. I mean, if I'm being honest, if the state bills it, it's usually exact, and even worse with the feds. So it just says our local share is $77,344.44. That we have paid $68,693, leaving a balance of $8,651.44.
Just amazing, it took 3 years.
And then actually, in fact, every single expense for the project is itemized here. That was one of the other reasons I felt it was pretty thorough, listed in this invoice.
Well, as long as those two numbers add up, I mean, you know, even though it's like the state took so forever.
Right.
I mean, so your overall contract and your amount we paid, they add up to what they billed, so. I don't see how you could fight not paying that.
Yeah, I would worry about future grants if we left a balance on ODOT's books.
Yeah, ODOT, I mean, they already screwed us when they estimated the cost of the project, and shortchanged us. That's why they got turned into phase one.
Well, I'm not saying not pay it, I'm just saying we should be sure, you know, as to why it took 3 years to get billed.
I agree.
Make sure it's not a double bill.
I
Yeah.
agree.
And I can make sure that it wasn't something where, I don't know when this would have originally been billed, meaning if it was on time, would have been a while ago,
Wait a minute,
but,
Is it possible we got billed and then?
did we get some credit back though? Cause I remember there was something that wasn't, oh, I know what it was. They weren't gonna pour in front of, Bookman's sidewalk,
Oh, the hair place, yeah.
because,
it was new enough.
well, and it wasn't, the bank was new enough and the other one wasn't.
Oh, okay.
So somehow, we gave up something. Oh, we got rid of the eyebrows,
Oh, yeah, I remember,
right? And then we got a credit back.
at each end of the square.
Mm-hmm. So there was a credit there.
Yeah, I can always make sure too that that check isn't like something lost in the mail or whatever. I'm
Well,
sure.
no, it happened, I mean, we were credited a certain amount. So I guess that's what you need to look into, what we were credited.
Mhm.
Because that might be it right there. The state might be saying, oh, wait a minute, we didn't bill Nelsonville. Well, did you count the credit?
Right.
Because we got a credit for those 2 eyebrows when we were in the square. That would have been a traffic nightmare.
Yes, I mean, I can certainly.
Yes,
look into it.
just, I guess, you can ask that question. We did get a credit for the eyebrows. I want to say it was like 11,000 or something. And then we told them to pour the sidewalk in front of Bookman's, which is probably about $4,000, which would leave about $8,000. If I remember correctly. I mean, I could be off a little bit.
We can find out.
I'm glad you guys remember, because I had no idea.
Certain things, I remember other things I just. But yeah, I do remember that. Now, the conversation comes up, we were,
That's one of the good reasons of bringing them here when that stuff happens, because, I mean, with Scott and I being, well, me full-time new, and Scott being new to the city, sometimes we don't catch all this stuff, so I appreciate it. The other thing, so I'll look into that, and then if we figure out that there's really no wiggle room on it, I mean, do we just bring it forward for you guys, or do you want me to come back to finance? Or?
well, yeah, so, because, no, I mean, if there's no wiggle room, then I guess we'd have to
I
pay
mean,
it.
if it looks fine, what do you think, Cory?
Yeah, that's a tough one because. yeah,
You
I-
do, risk future pissing them off and going.
Yeah.
But I mean, if there's a legitimate credit, and we can explain that to them,
Mhm.
and if they say they gave us the credit, then so be it, but.
I think we could do that though, with, if Taylor audits the bills
Mhm.
and then, you know, brings it back to us, I think we can go to them and explain to them what we should be able to go to them and
Right.
explain to them civilly what we were trying to accomplish and ensure that we're not overcharged and, you know.
Yeah, when every time I talk to Mr. Craig about it, I mean, he fully recognizes this is a bill from 2018, and he's not, you know, banging on the table or anything like that.
He might not even been part of the project at that point, he's just
He
the guy
might not have been.
responsible for sending the bill out.
They were probably going through their books and said, hey, wait a minute.
Okay, so yeah.
Again, I
we
would
can
just check
I'd
on
bring it
that.
back to committee then, I would say then.
Sure.
Okay.
Do you want it?
Sounds good.
I'm sure they won't mind waiting.
I mean,
They've
after
waited
all
this
this-
long.
I don't think the state's worried about $8,000, but okay.
Yeah.
Well, we cut our budget, and they were on the chopping block.
The next, oh,
And just to put in the back of your mind, you know, I don't know how they do things up there, but we are applying for the Small Cities Grant for the asphalt from 691 to the roundabout and from Blackburn's over the hill. So
Okay, we'll do that quickly then, Taylor.
checking it quickly.
that's all I wanted to get at. You know what I mean? I don't want them
Yeah, yeah.
to see this outlier and think.
No, you don't wanna piss them off to where they would,
Right,
they would
right,
say, screw them.
Right.
Makes sense. The next thing is, and so I thought I'd have more time this week to put this in writing and a few bullet points, but council is gonna have to accept a restitution plan. There really is no restitution from Mrs. Wilson. There's only been $100 paid so far. In fact, that was for 2 months ago, so I don't know where the two other $100 is. But eventually we'll get some things like the OPERS account, which will be some of it, but not
Mhm.
all of it, and, the state auditors made it really clear to me that there needs to be a in writing understanding of where this will go, and that it's not gonna change just by the whims of what we need in the moment where that money goes. And the reason just being is just because of the sensitivity of it.
Sure.
Well,
So-
so she stole from
Yeah, I
Parks and
mean-
Rec, right?
Yeah, well, so the suggested plan from the investigators was put it back as it was taken, which would be pool rec fund essentially right now, pool money first.
Right.
And then when that balance is, what's the word I wanna look for, relieved or paid,
Paid in full.
almost all the rest would be general fund. There'll be probably small balances owed to water and sewer since her salary came from there some, but.
We're gonna get a new pool liner, aren't we?
Yeah.
No.
And
No.
It's $100 a month.
Okay.
And then, of course, the OPERS is, I think the estimate given was less than 30,000, so it's really
But
not gonna.
do we have a final figure for, because if we're going after bonds, then we need to give the bonding company a final figure on what
I mean-
our estimated, I know it's 3 digits, but
Yeah, it's.
they're gonna wanna see line items, I'm sure.
I can always give the number that I think it's gonna end at. The problem is
It's not finalized yet.
it's not finalized by the state, and since the state has the final say on the investigation, now I believe for the state, it's finalized internally, for them and for their case. I don't know why this is, but their policy is they don't release their report in paper until, I think it was 90 days after the final proceeding.
Okay.
So she has a hearing
I was gonna
this
say, she
month.
hasn't- she hasn't
She hasn't even
heard
had her final trial, so I don't even know at this rate if that report will be done in 2021. I mean, it's done, I don't know if we'll see it.
Mhm. So if we were to, if we don't have specific numbers though, how would we put a plan in place and agree to it though?
We'll have to go off ours. So
Okay.
basically,
But see, I don't wanna necessarily put down a number and then the state say, well, you got what you had, okay, you're done. And that's not be the
True.
case because we had more than just that. That we are, because we only have a certain dollar amount that we know for sure.
Mhm.
And then, but we are, and I believe other agencies are confident that there's more.
Yeah, I mean, so, I guess the way to look at it is, it seems extremely, that seems like a problem we'd have if the restitution was to come in a much larger amount.
Yeah, we know that's.
If that makes sense. So I'm gonna, if, I don't have it in front of me, but if I were to tally up, my understanding of what was stolen from the pool, I'm gonna guess it's over 50,000. And that's a number we probably won't hit for many years anyway. So, I guess what I'm saying is that even if they said, well, your plan says 50, you need to change it to 56 for the pool fund, it's not like the money we won't have money in wrong places just because it won't come in that fast, if that makes sense.
So we could get a big chunk or two here and there, right?
Well, especially, so, how would that work then if we go after the bond and the bonding
I guess
agent wants to go ahead and settle for a certain amount? I mean, is that part of it too, that we need to have a plan where it goes to?
Mhm. Yeah, I would say if we were to get a serious amount, I would say over 50 all at once, it'd be pretty much incumbent upon me to get much more closer and make sure our plan doesn't need reevaluated based off any new information.
And who's pushing this, the state?
Yeah, the state wants a restitution plan, so I put the first $100 in the bank, that actually came in May, and if that's gonna be a regular thing, you guys pretty much have to say this, because the city can't just take money, right? We can't
Sure.
just take money with no purpose, so we have to
And we don't wanna do
understand-
an ordinance every month accepting
Right.
$1,000,
No. And what part of the plan could be is an understanding of where the first batch will go, meaning, hey, this is where we think the first 30,000 will go, and we will, put in writing the rest of the plan when the state finishes
Well, I
theirs.
guess we need a solid number then for the first part then, and actually how much we did.
Now,
And I can provide that, I just didn't bring
Because,
it today,
you know,
it's on me, I suppose.
I think it's well over 50 in the whole area.
can
I
we,
think so, too.
I'm okay with saying we're going to, put go to the state and say, hey, you know, do we have to put numbers here? Can we just designate that, funds will be received here until, or, you know, if we have an assumption of what the total amount is, and then the pool amount is just say, let's say a third of that, do we say, you know, 30% of it will go, the first 30% will go to the pool fund, and then the remaining.
Yeah,
will go
yeah.
to
Yeah, I can definitely talk to them. I'm gonna guess that they will, play ball with me on the phone, and that they're not gonna wanna be on writing on like, in writing on our ordinance,
Sure.
but I'm sure they'll.
And if
work
we,
with
give
me.
us guidance at least.
I mean, if
They've
we
dealt
find
with
out
this
that we
before.
have more,
We haven't, so.
Yeah,
and if we find out we have more in a certain area, can we always change, can we change that? Do we have the ability to change the plan?
We can always amend an ordinance or replace it.
yeah, I think it can be amended. I think that the understanding, if we accept this, if we create a plan, and it'll be sort of written up like a policy, is that, you know, amendments will be based off new case findings. I think the state wants to get away from council saying, or auditor or city manager basically saying, let's just make a fund, the sanitation fund. They really need money this month, so we're gonna put our money in there
Right,
this month.
correct, yeah.
They wanna be able to track, this is why it was done.
Right.
Because if you look at it from the state's point of view, they understand, you know, I could be temporary here, you guys could be temporary, so how do we create something they can follow for many years? Because I think they know this is gonna be a long,
So
this
we
is gonna
put
be-
like the pool and in
Basically,
general, right?
yeah.
Rec fund, yeah.
and these payments, if at $100 a month, we're talking about for the next 30 or 40 years, I mean.
Oh, 50 plus.
Yeah, and so it's, the state wants something they can follow for a while, if that makes sense.
Well, I think the big chunk of money we're gonna get back will just be from the insurance.
Mhm.
Her money, unless you attach her house to it or whatever, and they're not gonna see it. We won't see it in our lifetime, or, you know, her lifetime.
So I can definitely work that out, as long as you guys know it's coming, and,
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
and I'll contact the state. The next easiest thing, I'll just keep going up the list instead of down for whatever reason. So when we assess delinquent utility bills, this was something we're learning in the process. The county auditor and treasurer actually take a portion of it. A pretty large portion, actually. So what I learned was that most cities and any other entity, like a rural water provider, when they assess 10 to 15% of the amount being assessed onto the bill. And that covers the county auditor and treasurer's fees. So like if it was $100 being assessed and they had a 10% fee, they would actually assess 110.
Because they're collecting and then paying us.
So in other words, we
Exactly.
get 100% of our money, and the fee of collection is burdened on them.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, and so I put 15 just because that was on the higher end, but I mean, anything from 10 to 15 would cover it. It does change sometimes, I guess, because there's other agencies that get money, like the health department, and I actually don't know what all the calculation is for all these other agencies, but I just went off what other cities do. And so that's just something we're learning. We assessed, I think it was around $7,000 in the first round of property taxes this year. They'll show up on the second round, and so I mean, we'll probably lose several hundred. I mean, $700-800 of that.
Better than losing 100%.
Exactly, yeah. So it's still win-win, but it's just one of those things we're learning. So what I would ask is the committee approve some type of final fee or assessment for property tax delinquent
And,
utility
well, the
bills.
only utility we would have then is water and sewer,
The trash.
And garbage, yeah, the full utility bill.
garbage too, if it's a,
Mhm.
I guess it would be, we're collecting that, so yeah.
Do we ever get any delinquent back from property tax, ever?
This will be our first round, so I don't know.
We've got it in the past for mowing and such when it didn't go to the land bank, but this is our first time. It's a completely different situation, you know. With mowing, that's typically spiraling out of control anyways. With the water, the folks are still holding on to the houses, so I'm hoping it's more successful. Sorry to cut you off.
No, I think that's great. I mean, we'll get the disbursement for this round in the spring, so in the spring we'll know how many people paid
Okay.
right away. I know when we wrote letters to folks and called them, over half called and paid or came in and paid before we assessed it. So I think this group is these are folks who are still here, they still live here. Or unfortunately, what we're learning is in 3 or 4 account examples, realtors are not checking with the city before selling houses, which is really bad. I think it's actually like against some rules. And so what we're finding is that there's new homeowners who realize their realtor didn't tell them there was a code assessment, now a utility assessment, and
Yeah, that's
I don't know who
disclosure.
buys a house without checking the liens, but
Yeah, that's gotta be disclosure on that, you know.
How do they do that? They just call over and ask if there are any
yeah,
assessments?
well, I mean, in any search during the, we get some of our out-of-town realtors, I've noticed they will do a very official, on paper, they want us to sign and certify, and I'm all for that because that tells them, hey, yeah, there's money owed here. But what I've noticed is just in this round of assessments, there's 3 or 4 property owners. In fact, some of them knew the people who sold it to them and were really upset they had a $200 or $300 water bill left behind. And they had just purchased the house in the last year. And they weren't upset at us, they were upset at the realtor and the former owner.
Local realtors?
Yeah. So my encouragement is,
New realtors will do that a lot.
we've had that conversation now in the last 6 months. We've told the realtors, we're like, hey, you guys have got to check. Because you never know, one of these water bills could be, I think it'd be 4 digits. So you're gonna wanna tell your prospective buyer that. In any city, that's standard practice, so I don't know how I guess we just got out of the practice here because we haven't assessed in
Right.
many decades, but.
Well, yeah, are these realtors paying city tax when they sell a house here, or?
That would probably be income tax, but they were reported as income, so it should be income tax on commissions.
Any realtor should be, yeah. I have to kinda answer that generally, but yes, they should be.
Okay.
So I don't know how you guys feel about, is there any number that sticks out, 10, 12, 15?
I do like the 15%, only because it's an effort to try and collect that. So it covers our butt, and we get a little more of the whole bill versus us always eating
I
that
guess
portion.
it depends though, if it's $100, that's only 15, but if you get up to 1,000, that's a lot of extra money if they can't pay their bill to begin with, and then they're gonna
You
have to
can
pay
set up
that.
a payment plan.
Well, here's the thing,
I know, you might pay, but everybody isn't as rich as you, Dan.
I'm not rich, it's called responsibility.
Well, a lot of times it's more tenants, leaving the landlords high and dry, and then the landlords aren't wanting to pay it, and then that's when it gets assessed to the tax. Now, that's not always the case, but that's a very common occurrence.
But that's understandable, you don't wanna pay somebody else's bill,
Nobody wants to pay anything.
But
Oh, so
definitely
I don't
if
have
it's
to
not
pay?
yours.
No, you
Yeah.
don't have to.
I don't have
This is
Alright,
the,
okay,
no,
I don't
no,
have to,
no.
just say that.
You don't have
Only
to.
if you're as rich as I am.
this is the easier
We'll get it one
route.
way or another.
This is the easier route cities take in villages and rural water providers. It creates that backstop. The city has to collect on the water it provides. The other method is credit collections, and those are much more messier.
And you don't
Wanna
get
do
as
that.
much.
Right.
You're right, exactly.
Yeah,
You get a
they take a
discount.
higher fee.
And that is that's much more serious. Then you're really impacting your residents' well-being. at that point.
So you think 15 though is about what between the county and the other agencies that would be taking a little bit of cut, you think about that's what their fee is involved in? We're not making more money than what we are owed, are we?
At 15, maybe a little. I think the county treasurer falls in at 10.
Okay.
At 15, you might be collecting some of those final notice and postage costs so I don't believe we're required to do final, but if I'm being honest, while I'm in there, anyone who's gonna get an assessment's gonna get a final contact from my office, cause it just seems like the right thing to do.
Well, I
so-
just don't wanna we're not in a spot where we're not supposed to be making money off of
No,
that,
I agree.
so,
I agree.
But there is a significant amount of labor cost when we get to this point that is definitely outside the scope of what we're charging for normal day-to-day operations. Because by the time we get to this point, we have mailed and mailed and mailed, called and called and called. So even if there was a little bit back, it's not making money per se, it's just offsetting the excess labor it takes to track those,
These
track
are-
those accounts down.
By far our most expensive accounts, if you think about it that way. They just cost us a ton of time and money.
I just wanna make sure that if, say, with the treasurer and the auditor's fees, they're 10%, and, you know what I mean, I don't want it to be an excessive amount, is, at the end of the day.
Sure.
I want it to be fair.
Yeah.
And I wanna be able to recoup as much of our money as possible with being fair to the party who is deciding not to pay their bills, so.
I personally, or I guess professionally, I'm okay with anything 10 to 15, so I was gonna leave it in your guys' court, honestly.
I'm a little happier with 10.
Can we 12 and a half?
I prefer whole numbers.
Yeah.
By fives.
Yeah.
Okay, 15.
I mean, I'm all right with, I'm okay with 15 as long as, it is an appropriate fee. You know, again, thinking of Carlos' example, if it's $100, it's 15. I'm sure we've spent $15 in calls and postage and, you know, minus whatever the auditor and treasurer would take.
Mhm.
But she's right, I mean, $1,000, now you're saying that, you know, $150. But, you know,
So, yeah,
if you let the
we
bill
could
get
always
that
start.
high and didn't pay it or set up a
But
payment
if it's your
plan.
renters and they just run out on you, then
Well, and I don't disagree with that. I trust me, I've dealt with that, so.
When you're a landlord, you're in business and you take risks just like any other
well,
business.
maybe you do.
But you also could call the city auditor's office, city water department, and set up a payment plan, and then it wouldn't get to this point.
Right.
It wouldn't be assessed to the taxes either. So it does give them an option to be able to pay it over time at least, so it's not. And
I mean, you guys could always start at 10, and then next spring we could see kind of what people are paying, like what the county's taking from us, because they do take it. They take their share for their administrative cost, and
Sure.
I'm gonna guess it changes. I'm gonna guess it's not a fixed. I'm gonna guess the county commissioners can raise it and lower it like anyone can. So it's always up. I mean, if that's a happy medium, I don't know what.
I'm okay with starting at 10.
I'm good with 10.
Okay, 10 it is.
You guys, you can always raise it. But things never hardly ever get lowered.
No. I will agree with that. It's fine. I'm a big proponent for raising taxes. We'll go down.
Speaking of taxes,
Mhm.
Oh.
my next one is income tax requirements. So I want to give some of the context before I make my final ask, and this is truly like a very personal ask since I'm mostly working with this right now. The current income tax requirement is everyone in the city, no matter their status, has to file a form. And I mean no matter. Think of it, they could be disabled, have any sort of disability, and they still have to file as an adult. So what happens is if they're retired, they've been filing forms with me for up to 20 years. I mean, however long a person could be retired. And they're filing forms blank, writes retired, name, social security number, and files it. So what happens is on my end is first it becomes part of the daily paperwork, and then later when we process income tax forms, it becomes part of the mounds of income tax forms that we're entering into a software and then filing into the filing cabinet, which sounds easy, I get it, but when you're dealing with 25,000 forms, it does become quite the chore that doesn't happen in a week.
Why was that started to begin with, though? I mean, if you don't have to file, but you had to file, why was that ever started?
I don't know. I mean, I think the goal of it was if somebody retires and then decides to go back to work, they were thinking the city would catch it. But in the past 10 years, the city hasn't really worked on its income tax until the last couple of years. So I don't think we were catching them. And then we were just forcing what I consider to be good standing citizens to do work that I don't know why we were doing it. And then causing us a lot of work too. And so I've waited a really long time on the suggestion because this was my gut call like a year ago. But I think we should follow, so Athens does this, The state does this, the feds do this. If you are not of a certain status, you don't have to file income tax return. And so I actually believe if it's retired or disabled, and I put et cetera because I'm sure if I think really hard and look at somebody else's tax form, I can find 12 other statuses that are similar to that. But I couldn't think of them today with the auditors in my space. I think they should not have to file yearly any longer to save the paperwork, save them the trip over here, the stamp, and then the filing, the income tax software. I can close their account and basically move on from them.
But if the federal government is, so if the IRS is saying, okay, you don't need to file, but cross-referencing that individual for any W-2s or 1099s also though, right?
Correct.
So if we say, hey, because this is a means for us to at least know who in the city actually is filing, right? Because if you know, individual A is retired and then the next door neighbor is not, but he's like, well, I'm not gonna file because he's not filing anymore, and they won't know any different, right? So is there any way for us to check, because if there's W-2 or 1099 coming through, then there should be a form filed, right? So, you know, the IRS is doing an audit, the state, I'm sure, is doing something very similar too, so then how would we know? Because we did have that in the past where we had problems where people were not filing.
Yes.
And I think that's why they went to mandatory, to be honest, why everybody was required, it doesn't matter which, you know.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of mandatory for if you're making income. I don't want to change. I don't want to get soft on that one because I don't know.
But I don't know how you would know that otherwise.
Well, so
Especially if they get filed a 1099.
Or you know, or you know, individual A was paying and was filing and then moved out of the city, and then a new individual comes in and they're like, not gonna file. You know, so like, you know, how are you going to know?
there's two ways. So the first, the quickest way is the state requires if you have a Nelsonville resident or any city resident, it's actually a mess for businesses. And that's why I often call our system the worst taxation system in the country. Not Nelsonville, the state of Ohio's. But the state requires if you hire a resident from Nelsonville or basically you operate in the city of Nelsonville, even temporarily, like a contractor, they're required to file all W-2s that are relevant with my office. So we would get their W-2 if they had a W-2. If they didn't have a W-2, basically they have to file with the state, and the state sends me a yearly file for free, actually. I don't know why we never did this. It's a great tool. Of everyone in city limits who filed a state tax return. And my software allows an import function where it's the same company that we're moving to with utility billing. It's just their older software. Where basically I can import that file and it tells me who didn't file with me, who filed with the state.
Really?
Yeah, so that covers, I'd say, like 98% of them. The folks who are also dodging the state, I don't know the answer to that one. Because if they're dodging me, a W-2 and the state, that is a person that's going to be difficult to find. And so I'm not saying we couldn't, right? Because it's a small community and we know most of our members.
I want $2.
I will find them. But those two tools have been extremely helpful. So,
and they're free to us. We're not necessarily paying.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, the business is required to get me the W-2s, and honestly, with like, I haven't figured out how. I don't know if it would be assistance from another department or, you know, maybe the softwares will clear up some of our time. Our software allows for us to enter all the W-2s we get, which is a lot, and then run a cross-reference report with who filed, who is reported to have income from us.
Okay.
Now it's kind of a mess because like businesses will just file all of them, local. So like, I can't use an example, but just
Right.
think of like a large Athens employer, and instead of sorting out their Nelsonvilles, they just send you the whole stack to comply. And
Oh, so you're even getting all their employees?
Everybody.
Oh, okay.
it's a data nightmare. It's a privacy nightmare. But two, it makes the sorting, I mean, it becomes cumbersome. And so between the W-2s and the state file, the software will assist us with finding those folks. It does, now the state doesn't tell us how much they filed for,
Sure.
but that's kind of, they leave that on me to figure out, if that makes sense.
I agree with you.
I think if we can work it out and we're not going to potentially have people trying to dodge the taxes, then.
We may get one or two, but that'll happen anyway.
I think we already have one or two. So,
Yeah. And I'm not sure, I'm not sure the folks, the vast majority of folks filing retired and disabled, really are, and, they're not showing up on those state reports we're getting because they're not earning taxable income, and, in some cases, and some are, but it creates a lot of work, it really does. And I feel bad because we have residents who like to have cars, and then they say they're gonna walk to City Hall to give us their form, and, I don't know, it seems like an extra burden that other cities have gone away from. I know we're not a city like Westerville, but Westerville's another example. They just require them to file one voucher. I retired on July 1st, 2021, and I understand if I go back to work, I have to start filing again, for example. So there's just that final form.
Well, there you go.
I mean, I'm all about making it easier for folks that live here and businesses and being more friendly, because I think that's how we attract more people, so.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
I agree.
I have confidence in you, Taylor, so.
All right.
Don't
Hopefully I can
disappoint.
handle that. I can think of like a dozen people who are gonna be thrilled about that.
Okay, what else next? What we got next?
All right, Dan's in a hurry. We got income tax split. So I mentioned this in the rec meeting some. The city used to split a large, not a large, but a sizable portion into the pool from the income tax fund, or income tax funds, I guess you would say. So Scott and I have sat down. I've come up with a plan with multiple options. None of the options are really easy, and none of them are a magic wand. But the goal is to get matching funds for pool repairs.
Sure.
Particularly like the $500,000 big repair coming. So honestly, what we came up with is the easiest first step is to split a small amount of the income tax into there.
So right now we're at 95.5. Did we change that?
We're at 90 and 10.
90 and 10.
Mhm.
Right, so then would you take the 2% from what's going to the general fund, or are you trying to steal from the capital fund again? Right, Carla, right, I mean, here we
Well,
go.
I'm gonna wait and see, what do you have to say?
I was gonna say 10, 9, or 10, 2, and 88. That's what I had in my mind. I didn't even think of it the other way. I'm sure Scott and I will love to spend those funds from the capital fund for the pool repair eventually, so. Just kidding, I'm just kidding. No, but it's, 2% comes out, 1% is, in a really good year, $16,000 or $17,000. So 2 is, we're not talking about a lot of money. It's something I think in the current state, the general fund can, what's gonna end up happening is we're gonna end up paying for it from the general fund if we don't get those funds there
Right.
early enough.
Correct.
So, to me, it seems like a sensible, move for council, although if you guys disagree, just,
So on that though, so we were talking about possibly trying to put a pool levy in for continued maintenance. So, and then having that coffer for that. It was also discussed about how to, with the big pool liner coming up sooner than later, and the pool levy wouldn't be able to go on the ballot until, was it 2 years? 2 years from now, something like that. So,
next year, right?
Well, next, November is what they're talking about, but it wouldn't start till,
yeah, we wouldn't be able to get one on this year.
Oh, right. It'd be on the ballot next year, but not effective till next year,
So, and then, we're gonna need a pool liner sooner than that. So, there's grants out there, I know we need match money, but we also got, utilization of the USDA possibly a low interest loan and then until the pool levy kicked in, and then you could take that and pay off the loan and then still have a coffer for continued maintenance. Because that's, what we need to put something back for continued maintenance at the pool. There's always something. And if we just stay on top of the maintenance side, then it won't be such a big, but your pool liner is gonna be your biggest expense. Slides, diving boards, stuff like that, that's gonna happen, that's gonna come out. And if we have something in the coffer for maintenance or continued maintenance, ventilator fans, cause all that chemical just eats that stuff alive, so.
So if this doesn't happen with the liner, are we just gonna continue using the water? I guess next year, are we just gonna close the pool, or what would happen?
I definitely would not want to close the pool. It'd have to be really bad before, of course, we come up with something different. What I'm hoping, so the liner life expectancy is 10 to 15 years. We're currently at 20 for the deep end side. We don't know where our leak is. So our leak could be something as simple as a valve not shut all the way, or it could be something as serious as structural. So right now, we are losing, it sounds like a big number, water.
So why can't they just put dye or something on that to find the leak?
Well, even if you put dye in there, there would be, how would you inspect it?
Like you'd have to,
You're
Well, I
going
don't
through the
think-
whole filtration system.
Yeah, I don't think they know where it's actually going, the
No, that's why Harry and those guys went down to look, because when we talked to the pool people, they gave us the most common areas first. And the guys went down there and addressed those areas first.
Light streams, all that shit.
Yeah, so the lights, there's a lot of areas we suspect, so we're trying to troubleshoot what we can while it's full, and then there'll be more we can troubleshoot when the level comes down. But right now, I'm not interested in shutting the pool down to look for the leak. And as long as the leak doesn't get significantly worse, I would not want to close the pool next year. I think too many people really enjoy the pool too.
how much is it we're losing them?
So what did he say? It's
We're at 1,017,000 and,
yeah, he said what, 20,000 since Monday or 70,000
well,
since
so
Monday?
so if it takes
345 to fill.
to fill, but we're pumping
So
1,017,000.
we're at 3 times the amount right now.
Yeah.
So it's emptying out, once a,
So we're
Times a
losing 1
week.
million gallons.
Yeah.
We've lost 1 million gallons so far. However, it's not all gloom and doom. A lot of that is evaporation, but not that high of a number.
No.
So, because
it's
we
just
have,
a lot of water.
it is, we have significant water loss also with the way our pool's designed, because the more you put the water in the air, the more it evaporates. It's smaller. So, they have the buckets that fill up and dump water, and they got the little fountains that shoot out of the ground in the shallow end. So, it's not 1 million gallons worth of evaporation.
It's minimal.
So, it could be something as a bad valve in the drain itself that goes back into the sewer. We just don't know yet.
Okay.
But I know we've had leaks in that pool liner before and constant repair. I remember there was a split at the top where the tile meets, I think, or something like that. So all that stuff needs to do is keep getting behind there, and eventually it's gonna eat away that gunite on that finish, so.
Yeah, it gets behind there, freezes, and delaminates it.
Sorry, got off subject there.
No, it's all on subject, I think.
So, I'm okay with, appropriating some, the monies towards that goal. I'm even open to considering a levy for the pool if necessary, because, you
I
have
think
to.
eventually a levy's gonna be necessary.
Yeah, you gotta, I think, what's the time frame on that? That you gotta get it to the auditor, by like March maybe, to get the
90
results?
days before
90
the
days,
election.
Okay.
Oh, you mean you have to be finished with the process 90 days before.
Right, so, yeah,
So you
because
really wanna
we
start
have to
like
get
6
her to,
months.
yes, we gotta get them to solidify the number, and they send us back paperwork. Not sure the whole process, but I don't think we have enough time to get one this year's election in November. So, and then governor, senate race, something like that, is that next year?
Governor race next year.
So, we could get it on that election, couldn't
There's a primary and a general.
It,
So-
it may be something to consider just for even the ongoing maintenance.
Well, true,
Because
and,
we'll
you know,
probably, with any luck, we'll have our liner done potentially before that, and then we'll just need ongoing maintenance.
Yeah, I mean, the list goes on, you know, the roof is still original, and I mean, if we had a hailstorm, of course, we could claim that on insurance, but, not, the paint all needs freshened up, the lockers, people still use them, but they don't lock anymore, you know, so do we wanna remove that and put shelves in for people that way, you know? So there's a lot of options for improvement, other than just the valves, which that's the real expense, you know, is in the plumbing, so, and the liner, of course.
plumbing and liner.
You know, I don't know if people at home wanna get crazy and add a second slide or not, but I don't even know if it's a possibility.
No.
But,
They sure
I don't think
yes.
it's big enough for another.
yeah, I'm not sure.
Could you imagine that? Put like an S on there, slide.
It's definitely something without action, we'd be kicking ourselves in the butt, because it's only gonna get worse.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, the bare essentials is the infrastructure of it, so.
Yeah, which we haven't really touched, so.
I mean, you're looking at 15 grand just to replace the, umbrellas.
Yeah.
They're 5,000 apiece, so.
I guess my final thing on that would be, I guess you wanna take 2 out of the general fund when we was having a hard time just getting our 5% back for capital improvement. So, is the general fund in that good a shape now then, that?
Yeah, I mean, it's in, compared to my first day, it's in a much better shape, yeah. I mean, but if council, if your guys' feel was, either less or to split it between the two, or, I mean, I don't know, it's up to you guys what you wanna do.
I don't think capital improvement can take
Oh,
the hit.
no, we wanna keep that at 10, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, and I agree, general fund is much healthier now than it once was, so.
It's
So
one of
if you-
those things, I feel like council's gotten in this healthier habit with the split, you know, when like the prison went under and the economy wasn't great, you know, council moved quicker to change that split to prevent layoffs in other departments, and I think as long as this council and future councils are in the realization that this is a way to invest, but when the state or the economy kicks our behinds, then it's also a safety net, so.
Well, even when the correctional opens back up, you won't see the money that you used to see from there. Because it was a men's facility and they had leaks galore. They had the old running troughs and they ran 24/7. So, and being switched over to more of a women's facility, you just won't have that. So I would say, and they had a ton of leaks. So they were, state just said, oh, pay it. So I don't think you'll see that type of income from there anymore when it reopens. We'll see some, but not like we did before.
So I guess we're good with that then?
I'm okay with that, yep.
And it would be, the pool's currently funded out of the rec fund, just to make sure we're on the same page, so it would go in the 300 fund for pool purposes.
Next.
That's my list.
That's done.
That is my list.
Well, Carla, she's
Me?
got a list.
Well, I did, but, I mean, with the pool, losing all that water, that's gonna take care of this. So, one thing, just kind of personal, when we got these funds, I don't think you was here. I don't think, you could have been, I don't think so. So, I was under the impression all this new phone stuff, we got all this information about it, was that it was gonna be so great and we could transfer everything so that someone in the building would answer the phone. So, we can still call, I know I've called, and it still just goes to voicemail. What is the problem with all this money we spent on all these new phones that we cannot have it transferred to where somebody can pick up the phone?
So
'Cause
we
there's
can,
always someone in the water department, right? I mean, you know, during open hours.
so we can transfer, we can do a call tree. How, actually, we have one laid out, it just hasn't been done yet, and I don't know why. I'm glad you said it, 'cause it fell off my radar. The issue we have is, you know, who can answer the phone, you know? For PD now, that's covered, they got theirs. but I'm in and out so much, Becky's in and out, so it would be transferring our calls down to them, which is not a big deal, it's super easy to do, I just don't know what kind of workload that puts on you guys.
Well, it probably wouldn't be that much, but I mean, to call out here after we spent, the whole reason we got the new phone system was for lots of upgrades, and one of them was so that they could be transferred and somebody would always answer the phone during regular hours. So I wanted to see what's the possibility of if we can do that. Cause it is really bad to call and just goes to voicemail.
I couldn't agree more with you. The phone rings off the hook all day long.
So what's the solution? I mean, we're not gonna hire a clerk or something?
No, it should be able to just go to someone that's here working.
I got you.
That'd be pushing code and city manager calls down to water office, is what that would look like.
Or the police clerk.
If she becomes full-time, that would be an option as well, but right now she's part-time, so.
I don't mean to say this to be devil's advocate, but the phone rings all the time. I mean, so like last week, we had Robert on vacation, and Cindy could barely keep up with just the phone calls, let alone the folks who came in, and of course we have separation of drawers in there, so it became
So
more
I mean, I
complicated.
guess just put yourself as the public and you call here, and we did move her from part-time to full-time.
Oh, I agree.
And it just seems like to help the people in Nelsonville, somebody needs to answer the phone, especially
Oh, I know,
like I said.
I'm in agreement, we wanna answer it. I guess what I mean is, like, just in this conversation, it would've rang 3 times already. And nobody in my office especially, I don't think anyone in Scott's office, we don't let the phone ring, if we're there, obviously, but it is, I'm not trying to be dramatic, it seriously rings all the time.
Oh, I believe.
I actually
that
made,
it does.
actually, I have one little point of order that I think backs it up. I made my employees turn their phones to a quieter volume because they were all blaring and it was ringing every 20 seconds. Like it was hurting our focus and stressing everyone out. So I was like, can you put a more pleasant ringtone on those phones, please? Because they don't stop. And then what happens is they're both on the phone, so that starts rolling over to Judy and I. Yeah, I don't know if it's because we expanded the water district or if there's just a lot of water leaks or something. I don't know, but we ring all the time.
But if there was a way to transfer those, I mean, I know there is, and we have their numbers if you don't have them for some.
No, it's easy enough to do that, I just don't know who would answer the phone. I mean, there used to, I don't know the history of what happened to that position, there used to be somebody that sat in the front office here, but then that went away.
Oh, you mean Gail? Becky took her position. Do you mean Gail, or do you mean the water office?
No, I didn't, I thought Becky took,
She took
the code
Steve's,
officers.
yeah.
Now,
She
so,
took Gail's,
so
but
the
it
code
went into
officer
half and half.
was let go,
Mhm.
and then it was just Gail for a year,
About a
couple
year.
years?
Her job was not code though, her job was to be the secretary for the city manager. That was her job.
Right, yes, so her,
She wasn't code. no.
So when Becky
technical
was first hired, that was
was-
to.
No, she was
Half-
hired as code, but with, as to answer phones
No,
also.
she was
No,
hired
no.
as Chuck's assistant,
as
Yes.
as administrator and
assistant,
code.
and then some code.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, because Gail,
That's one thing I remember, you remember something,
Right.
I remember that, yeah.
well, yeah, Gail was like the administrator, but I think when they got rid of Steve Pearson, didn't they give her something under code too, or?
No, I think that went to just like
It
the
just,
fire
it
and
just,
police or
well,
something.
well, went
Gifted
nowhere,
some of it.
basically went nowhere.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but
When she's in the office, she takes all the calls. The challenge with that is if she stays in the office to take all the calls and she's not doing code. So, and she has to go out and about to do code. So I can't stand somebody not answering the phone when I call somebody, so I'm with you 100%. I just don't know who to forward it to. You know, that's,
Just whoever's in the bill, I mean, I guess there is always someone in water, which I know would be an added trouble, but somebody needs to answer the phone.
also, police department, so she's here, at least till what, 2:30?
roughly, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, that's always an option,
That's true.
But if we pile that workload on her.
then she comes full-time.
Right, but I guess what I'm saying is,
Oh, I don't know.
you know.
I don't know what the answer is there.
Right, I guess, I bet there's a way we can pull statistics, how much, I would guarantee those phones tell us how many people call here every single day. Cause, yeah, it's a constant problem. It's a problem on this side as well. So I fully get it. I hate that the customer service is bad, that we don't have it. I know when we had the HABCAP person here, it was great because they would answer that call, but we don't have a HABCAP person currently, so.
Right.
Is that feasible in the future? I mean, as far as, are we getting more half cap or not?
They come and go. So,
Usually when
sometimes
have
they work
like
out
a-
and sometimes they don't.
Oh, yeah, I know, so.
It's usually when they have like an administratively minded person who, you know what I mean?
We've had some outstanding ones, and we've had some that we've had to give back to the program for them to find an alternative location for them.
So then we can at least look into seeing about transferring the,
I have no problems doing it, I just don't know where to send it other than his people, so,
You
Okay.
have the current staffing to handle the call volume, I mean, it just, would there be any room to add an additional person, or is it kind
well,
of?
we already upped the part-time to full-time, so I mean, that should have helped a little bit. I mean,
What's
it's not
part-time,
always, what's her name, Cindy?
Mhm.
Is that her name?
well, they used to have 4 in there before, right?
Yeah. There was actually 5 between the two offices before.
And now you're at what, 4?
Mm-hmm.
But I think we decided we didn't need that, right? Wasn't that the reasoning behind?
Well, I'm sure everyone had their own, I mean, as far as our council votes, we had our own reasons for how we voted. I seem to remember we made the change with the combination after the prison closed. It just became simple, the prison was an immediate triage event. We just were,
Yeah, it was a big hit.
yeah, we weren't sure what we were gonna do without 18% of the revenue.
Are you guys against us looking at the potential of a call center service, because which should be significantly cheaper than a person on staff, where our number would forward and they would answer, and then,
As long as it's not an automated system.
no, it'd be a human.
No, I don't really like the call center.
As long as it's not like
We're gonna
overseas.
We should be able to keep it in.
I really wish you'd come
In-house.
up for a day and hang out and see
Oh,
how they.
I believe you that it rings. It's just like I said, put yourself, you know, you don't work here, you are just a resident, and, you know, you pay taxes, and we got all this phone stuff to do, all this fancy stuff, and.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but one of the other big reasons why we got Freedom Links or that system was because it was significantly cheaper than what we were doing.
And it did all kinds of fancy stuff.
Well, but it
Well-
wasn't only the city manager's department that
Right.
did it for, because
Yeah.
we were wanting calls to be picked up in other departments too, especially, due to more emergency type issues, and they weren't being responded, so.
Right.
Right, so I
One
mean,
of the
so,
things-
Calls
the
to be
phones,
picked up.
the phones, I know for a fact, the phones, because I got the same exact phones in my office. The phones aren't that much money, it's the service, that you're paying for here, and the service is a heck of a lot cheaper than what we were paying through AT&T.
That's true too.
I think one of the other things too, and so we've worked a lot on this in my office. I don't know how other departments have handled it, but one of the other things too is, so what happens when all those phone lines are tied up, it goes to voicemail. It seems like nobody's there, but really everyone's talking, right? And so what we've worked on, and I've worked with this with Robert and Cindy in particular a lot, is how do we create situations, or let me phrase it, how do we not create situations that create questions that we can answer a different way? So if somebody just calls in and it's like, when's my trash day? Well, you're tying up a phone line, right? And then what happens is, because we know everybody, the conversation doesn't take 30 seconds, it takes 6-7 minutes. And so, that could be also something that we try to explore, which is how do we get these questions answered in other ways so that the phones aren't ringing 24/7, so that when somebody calls with an issue they have to talk to the city auditor about, the phone's not taken.
Well, I think part of that is our utilization of our website, and
Mhm.
Facebook, et cetera, but I mean, I think that not everybody in the city is gonna be savvy enough to do that.
Sure.
And so, you know, and some people just prefer to call someone, so.
Absolutely.
You know, I don't know the exact answer, you know, but I think that I think the only thing that I would suggest is potentially training, with staff, because there are ways for people to be respectful and courteous and, you know, very, client-driven, but then still at the same time be a little bit more, you know.
Hustle, not fun.
Yeah, I mean, no, don't, you know,
Well,
okay, I gotta go,
hustle,
you know,
Right,
and, you know, but I mean, there's.
Tuesday.
There's ways that they're able to, you know, do it where it's, you know, more tactful and.
Are there more like, alternative, like messaging or, you know, chat or email, that kind of thing?
Now, again, we're getting back to this tech savvy people that,
Well, what
you know,
about
some people
recording?
don't have that.
So that's what we
Like,
do.
one for your
No,
trash?
I hate that, because I stand on the frickin' zero button for blah blah, press one, for blah blah,
So
and then, so
Okay,
you press that button.
limited.
That's how we mitigate in my office, so we mitigate two things.
Then
One
you
is
press
we.
that button, and it's like, okay, for blah blah, press this, I'm like, oh my god.
We mitigate two things in my office. The one is the emergency times, so when the water's out in the whole city, we know we can only take 4 calls at a time, and that's if it's during office hours. If it's not, it's just Judy and I. And so 2 calls at any given moment, we can't reach the whole town. So we change our office recording to say, yes, there's a water loss event across the city. So we do try to do that. If you called in during the trash changeover, you would have heard 3 or 4 questions quickly answered before it said press 1.
Oh, well, that's good.
It helps. It doesn't always fix the problem. The other thing it does is it gets rid of junk calls, which has been a huge help. Google called us like once every 10 minutes.
My
And
goodness,
they-
that's over half my calls is solicitation calls.
They can't do it anymore because they're auto dialers, and it's not really Google, it's like a junk call, right?
Yeah.
But those auto dialers don't press 1, so it helps. It just doesn't,
That would actually help a lot of them. I didn't think about that.
yeah.
'Cause
I
never
love our
noticed.
recording, honestly, because the moment, if I come in and it's like 6 questions in the first half hour about trash pickup, I can say, we can kind of narrow it down. Okay, yes, East End has had some trash disruption, we can put that in the recording. But like I said, those are like high traffic kind of moments, like we're getting a lot of calls at the same moment. It doesn't kind of ebb the whole days, if that makes sense. There's a
By
lot
the way,
of calls.
customer service training is not always bad. I mean, I think that in general, training with folks, I mean, it's been beneficial when we've, you know, like the police department, they've implemented their training, you know, the fire department that does their training. So I think as a whole, the city, I mean, even council's been trying to go through training, although some train better than others.
Right.
Oh, Mr. Duffy, I'm surprised you said that.
I guess I just want to caution, because I feel like we've done a fantastic job at leaning down our processes and leaning out waste. To provide that level of service, off the top of my head, I can't think of anything other than reducing code or pulling one of Jason's guys out of the street department to come over and answer calls. So,
Well, that doesn't make sense.
You would almost need a person just to answer phones.
the call volume warrants it, that's for certain.
But, our pocketbook doesn't, unfortunately.
Right, that's what I'm saying, so with the existing resources I have, to pay that bill, I gotta cut over here somewhere. So I don't have anything else to pay that bill that you want me to pay, other than cut something else, which is fine, I'm okay doing that. If council would prefer to have the phones rang more than citations for grass, I have absolutely no issues with that whatsoever. Happy to make that change, you know, so that's kind of.
No, I'm just saying, is it possible to transfer them to the water when you guys aren't there?
Well, it sounds like they got.
It is
pretty high-
absolutely possible, but I mean, that's a significant.
So they got a pretty high volume.
I understand.
Well, I tell you what.
And
What do you think,
I think the
Taylor?
only person folks call more than my office is Scott too, so, I mean, like, you have to understand, like, we get a ton for Yes Utility, but poor Scott, I mean, people will call saying, I heard city was buying the house next to me, and I don't want you to buy that house, and the city has
You'd be amazed at the
never,
calls I get.
never talked about buying that house, or is but it's like,
I would not think to call you about something.
You'd be amazed.
You would.
You'd absolutely amazed.
So, I'll tell you what,
Yeah,
so, just not to, I mean, it's all good discussion, but we're not really getting to a solution yet, so maybe you guys could brainstorm on that a little bit, and then come up with a couple solutions or ideas, maybe?
Well, I definitely want to put in the, to get rid of the robocalls, because that would be very helpful. I didn't even think about doing that, but,
Is that something our service already pays for?
Yes.
If we can-
yeah, that, we're already, I mean, doing a call tree is, we already have it mapped out and everything, who would be first, you know, because you put the people that, get contacted the most. I mean, probably another third of our calls is for mayor's court. And if we
Well, that
had.
might cut down then, if you do that.
Absolutely, if we did a call tree and redirected those, you know, so
Yeah.
I think there can be improvements made, but to go full service, I'm gonna have to cut something to pay that bill. And again, I'm
Well,
okay with that.
Start slow, like you said,
Yeah,
brainstorm a little bit, start
Yeah,
slow.
and let's
Yeah,
see
you
what we
help
can
with
do
that, I
in,
know it's-
in-house, that, you know, initially, like, just maybe the robocalls cuts a third of your volume down, I mean.
Oh my goodness, yes, the robocalls.
That sounds good, we'll just check back.
And if not,
in
Michael said he
couple
will
months.
come and answer the phone.
Well, and if you guys do press,
I said I'll help you
That-
brainstorm on
that's what his
efficiency.
profession, so that'd be a good guy.
I've been in the call center world for over 10 years.
well, I think if you guys consolidate, because her hours aren't set per se, you know, like, she doesn't work Friday, which is fine, she's part-time, you know, and so is Jessica, she's part-time. If you do end up going that direction and making one full-time, because I was sitting here trying to think, what are our bulk, I think probably mayor's court's the second one that is the most,
Then we'll
because
have-
they wanna know about their, ticket, how do they pay their fine?
Fines and-
Or they just found out their license is blocked and they're at the B&B, I get that one a lot.
Oh, yeah, that one, yeah, there are people real.
And they always say
nowadays.
you blocked my license, and I'm like, I'm sorry,
With
bud,
that,
but I didn't.
with those two positions.
Okay, you're fine then,
I
you're
didn't.
blocked.
Right,
Open up enough room for calls to come in also. I mean, that would be,
Would what?
it's like you merge those two positions together into one. Are they gonna have enough time to do calls plus those two original?
well,
So you got
I
32 hour
think-
part-time, 32-hour part-time, 64 hours.
I think that, but I think it's more about the, standardization, you know, if we have somebody here 9 to 5, you know, hypothetically, right? And a call tree, that'll work. The difficulty comes in when somebody calls at noon on Wednesday and gets to talk to somebody, and then they call back on Friday for a follow-up, and the phone's not answered here, so they keep calling through the numbers till they get a hold of somebody, you know, because they're worried about, well, like you said, at the DMV or something. So if we had somebody that was 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, you know, that would consistency, create consistency, that's the word I was looking for, and standardization, so.
And then at some point too, with our current, system, there's kind of like you pick which evil you want, which is the voicemail you mentioned earlier. So ours drops the voicemail because, me personally, in my office, I'd like to know what they're calling about so I can call them back about it. The other option.
Yeah, 'cause I tried to call you once, and it went to voicemail.
Well, the other option is that it holds, right? And then people really I don't wanna put my folks on hold. And that, why, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, I'd rather than just dropping the voicemail and when we finish our call, we just call them back.
So we'll just, like Corey said, we'll check back in a couple months, see if it
Mhm.
helped anything.
We can give it a go.
Okay, thank you.
Just give us an update next meeting.
So, you may have already told us this, Taylor, and I just wasn't listening, but.
No, you-
So when you give us all these, for the credit cards,
Mm-hmm.
where does all that come from? Like,
Are
where
you
is all
asking-
this taken out of? Is it just the general fund? Is it each department?
Oh,
Like-
I see. Well, so it depends, right? So if like,
Like operating supplies? I mean, where does it?
that's the most typical place, yeah. You'll also see often like training line items or education, because often like the training, program will only take a credit card as payment. You see that a lot in like PD for their trainings. But we can take it from anywhere. So the credit cards are really just a medium. We pay, and then we pay the credit card company. When we pay the credit card company, we pay from wherever those funds should be taken from. So when we send that check, we basically take from all over, water, sewer, street, general.
So I guess I mean, like, how do we know when we're, just say for easy math, say you got $500 to spend and you take 50 here, 100 here, how do you know when you're done? Like, you know, when you can't take any more out of that fund, and you just keep charging though, I mean.
Oh, well, good question, actually. So as part of our process, and this is something that has been difficult to clean up, but I think we're getting much closer to where we need to be, that is, we have a sign-out system for the credit cards. So in other words, a department head can't just keep swiping and then blow past their budget. They've got to bring an approved purchase request signed by Scott. In an emergency, if I'm being honest, yes, Scott and I can just talk on the phone because, I don't know, something's happening and they just got to go do it now. But, and then that purchase request will say, for this item from this place, take it from these line items.
Okay,
And so
then
they
you
have to bring
check
that to
and
me.
See if it's got money left in it, you mean?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, all
Yeah.
right, thank you.
And we use that request to build the purchase order, which is what we use to pay them, so.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I just wondered if it just kept going and going and going.
So
and
then it
going.
just, so then it
It's the
reduces-
hardest bill to pay, even though it's one of the smaller ones. It's too bad Judy's not here, because she's the one who compiles it, and she hates it.
But then it would reduce their line item in that department.
Yes.
For that, and then the next month they know that, oh, this is all I got now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
And that's real time, so like, that's if you ever look on here, encumbrance year to date on some of those reports I give you guys, encumbrance means they've submitted a purchase request and it's approved, and we've set that money aside. It means we haven't paid for that bill, but it can no longer be spent again. And so, in that sense, they can see what they have actually nearly in real time on the same day. And that way they know, okay, we haven't paid that credit card bill, but I only have $100 left because we've encumbered it.
Oh, all right, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm good. Dan, Corey, what did you guys have?
I'm good.
Do you guys need anything for the sergeant position through PD? His current budget can absorb it.
No, well, I guess we gotta do a staffing ordinance, but
Right, I know you guys just mentioned running it through finance,
I
so.
thought he said it was only like, what, $2,500 or something?
Yeah, he's got it in his budget, so.
I'm sure he's saved that in overtime.
Oh, yeah.
No, I
You
don't
guys see the
know.
numbers, it's drastic. And then, the full-time position, I know we gotta check on the charter for that. Is there anything?
Well, I guess we don't have a whole lot of choice now.
We'll see.
Well, yeah. I'd like to let that sink in and wait and see what the charter says.
Yeah, that would have to, yeah, we can talk offline about that.
Would, is there any objection, I know it was discussed at the prior meeting about sewer rate changes, I just would hate to
Oh,
get
yeah,
the
that's-
council.
Oh, I know, I'm not voting for it then.
Well, I think that's always just stuck with utility.
Yeah, it's standard, but.
But I mean, it's always standard utility. I don't think we've ever ran a sewer rate change through finance.
No, we don't.
Okay, it just
Well,
comes-
no, we used to when Gary Dickerson was here, but, I mean, it's still always just
Do we
went
have
to
any
council.
more changes coming up, more rate increases
You
on
do.
that?
We're still every 6 months on sewer.
So-
I gotta go
That's why
look
I'm
at the
voting
curve,
no.
because the curve decreases at some point. I just gotta go pull the email.
It does. It basically just keeps up with the cost of it, because we haven't raised anything in.
We have
Oh, wow.
raised sewer a
Well,
lot.
yeah,
Like in the
because we
In the
haven't,
last 4 years,
because
3.5
we have,
years.
Gonna say five.
because we have not raised it at all.
And we've raised it like, the water like 75 or 80%.
Again, still the cheapest in the area.
I know.
The
I'm not
problem,
increasing the water, by the way, just for
the problem with
those out there,
sewer,
I'm not gonna increase it.
I hate to be the bad guy, but the city and the council, everybody here, I mean, my own pen to paper, has committed the ratepayer to the sewer plant loan.
Yes.
So that loan will be over $200,000 when it comes due in 2 years, which
But we have
effectively
that.
means we have it in the fund, we don't have the surplus.
Right.
So that what I mean is, we have to get 250,000 additional each year before now and then, in surplus each year. I'm not just talking in the fund, I mean more than we spend, and we're nowhere close to it, honestly. I mean, in the last, I didn't bring my update
So
ones
Michael
today.
Betts has ran the numbers for us, and based on the loans and the project, that this year we need to do this,
Yeah.
and the next year we
He's
need to
given
do
us the
this.
schedule, and
Yeah.
to be honest, of all the engineers that have given us the schedule, I definitely trust Michael the most.
And I think that's a legitimate thing, is because for so long we played catch-up. You know, we're trying to get out in front of it.
I do not disagree.
Well, just to finish on that point I was making was the surplus in the sewer fund is gonna be less than 100,000 this year. So at some point, before 2 years from now, we've really gotta have enough to pay that loan, or it'll be like the water fund again. You guys will be raising it 20 or 25% at once.
And that's what we're trying to avoid.
And that's the feds, so they come for their money.
Is it
So
possible,
I
by the way,
answered.
I'm sorry, this is finance related, but it's not, it's off topic, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, we're done.
Is it possible to get those invoices, by the way, from the attorney that we, voted on first, reading to pay those bills, but is it possible to see what those bills are? What the
I guess I'm drawing a blank, I'm sorry.
The last
past
council,
bills.
the last council meeting,
Uh-huh.
there was an ordinance that was up for first reading to pay the city attorney.
Oh, yeah, sorry, yes.
Oh, yeah, if you could.
You wanna see
send
those, is
out
that what
to
you're
us,
saying?
is that-
Please, yeah, because we were just kind of like voting on a blank check,
Mm.
so.
You
Email
sent those
everybody.
last time, right? Or
Did you
some?
send them?
No, but, so you guys have been given an Excel sheet, I can scan the actual bills.
Yep.
Or just an Excel, the Excel sheet we do have?
We'll get the bills to you.
I'm not worried about the bills
Just-
themselves, just the
Data.
costs and, yeah, months and, dollar amounts.
I thought in the fall, didn't you send a sheet that I helped prepare, Scott? I mean,
We can just, I did, but we can get a fresh one, that way it's all, because a lot's happened since then too,
yeah.
because, yeah, I'll work with,
If it was
TSAP
fall,
and get
that's
'em.
probably the old email. If it was the-
I'm all done, I have nothing else.
Scott?
that's it. If you guys don't need anything for Scott's request or any of the other requests that you, I mean, look, I'm glad you guys were here tonight, so that way kinda heard the other stuff.
Yeah.
It was only like 2,500 for that one that I can recall.
Yep.
Did you guys have any questions?
All right.
Yes, we're done. We will adjourn at 8:19.